This procedure will separate zinc sulfate from the water by adding calcium carbonate. The calcium carbonate and the zinc sulfate will both turn into calcium sulfate and zinc carbonate, which are both solids that can be filtered through the filter paper. Zinc sulfate is a salt that dissolves in water. When it forms with other agents, it becomes toxic to birds and extremely toxic to fish and aquatic wildlife. First, you add calcium carbonate in a test tube. After you add it into the test tube, you add water into the same test tube. After you add the water, you shake it around so it dissolves. You add zinc sulfate to the same test tube. And then you filter out the solution. After being filtered, the water was clear with some residue of solid parts inside the filter paper, as you can see. Calcium sulfate is a calcium salt that's used for a variety of purposes. It is also used in making immobilizing casts for medical purposes. If it is inhaled, it could irritate skin and eyes. It is considered toxic as it irritates the skin, eyes, and respiratory system. Zinc carbonate is also known as smithsonite. It is an ore of zinc. It is sometimes polished and used as an ornamental stone. If you are exposed to smithsonite with mild or moderate toxicity, you will have nausea, vomiting, and abdominal pain. This is only after ingesting or being exposed to it for long periods of time. Overall, the experiment was successful as zinc sulfate was removed completely from the water.
Magnesium helps regulate muscles and nerve functions, but over 500 milligrams of magnesium is considered unsafe. It is used to make fireworks as it catches on fire very quickly. Calcium hydroxide is used as sewage treatment. Chronic exposure to the skin may cause health problems, and is also used in some hair relaxers. Magnesium sulfate has many uses such as medication and is used to treat low blood magnesium and seizures in women, and is even used in barium poisoning. Sodium sulfate is not harmful to the environment and is used in most detergents. Magnesium hydroxide is mainly used for milk of magnesia and as well as a laxative. If taken through the mouth can cause problems as it is a laxative. First, get 10 milliliters of zinc sulfate in a test tube. Then add a small piece of magnesium that you have sanded. This will leave you with magnesium sulfate and zinc precipitate. After that, take that magnesium sulfate and add 10 milliliters of sodium hydroxide. By doing so, you will have sodium sulfate and magnesium hydroxide, which is a double displacement. You can filter the magnesium hydroxide out by using a coffee filter and a beaker. After that, you will be left with sodium sulfate. Add calcium hydroxide to sodium sulfate, giving you calcium sulfate and sodium hydroxide. Again, you can filter the sodium hydroxide out, leaving you with calcium sulfate. Sodium hydroxide is corrosive and can cause great deals of pain if in contact with skin. It is toxic to aquatic life because of the hydroxide ion. Calcium sulfate is known as plaster in Paris. It is not bad for the environment, and exposure to it can cause irritation in the eyes, itchy skin, and much more.
The goal of this experiment is for the calcium hydroxide and the zinc sulfate to react, making calcium sulfate and zinc hydroxide, both are which are solids, which will be collected in the filter paper. Calcium hydroxide is used in industrial settings for sewage treatment, paper production, and construction. It is very safe unless you're working with industrial grade. If it is industrial grade, it is highly toxic and can irritate, injure, or even kill animals. First, we take the calcium hydroxide and put it in a test tube. After putting in the test tube, you add water to it to make it into a solution. As it turns into a solution, shake it around so it dissolves faster. Now we will measure the zinc sulfate, approximately 5 ml. Then we pour it into a test tube. After pouring it, we mix the zinc sulfate and the calcium hydroxide. You shake this newly formed solution until it becomes clear. After this, you will pour it through filter paper to filter it out. So now it is filtering, and it should filter for a long time. So you should let it wait. That not properly been dissolved. Now we look at the water, and inside there were solid chunks. That was a mix of zinc hydroxide and calcium sulfate. Zinc hydroxide is used in calamine creams, ointments, and baby powder. It is not toxic to animals and not to humans as well. Calcium sulfate is used for a variety of purposes. However, if it is inhaled, it could irritate the skin, and if it is ingested, it could target the respiratory system, causing conjunctivitis. I think the result was successful as the zinc sulfate was completely removed from the water and was then filtered in the form of zinc hydroxide and calcium sulfate. So I believe the experiment was successful.